Okay, so welcome to part 6 of my GPS assisted ionizing radiation survey meter build video. So if you're only now just joining us, let me give you a quick little intro. And if you want to know the full reason why I'm building this, have a look at the link in the description below. There's an unlisted video there that explains a bit more detail about what this project is about. So what do we have here? We have a little Raspberry Pi 0W built into a pop-up monitor, and we also have a Geiger counter built into it as well, and we have a real-time clock and a few other things. We're not getting much radiation through tonight. It's very, very low here. We have a Ukrainian SBM20 tube in the bottom, and there will be a grill over this. This is still a build in progress. If you've seen the other previous videos, you'll notice there are now some rubber feet on here. There's a slot through here because the laser cutting didn't work out quite right. There are a few more buttons on the top. And we have a 12 volt DC input crudely drawn until I can label it. The case is also all screwed together. So where are we picking up? So where you pick up this video is me receiving a few deliveries. And the final parts to get the Geiger counter board happening. So that bit is actually happening, and there's a bit of programming as well. These have turned into nearly half-hour videos, so I try and keep it going, but I've cut a lot of the build footage out. There's been a lot of just sitting around on my hands waiting for components to show up, but it's almost ready to go. So if you watch through to the end, you'll probably see it actually successfully logging GPS readings and radiation data all in the one CSV file. A few quirks to go, but we're nearly there. So let's just jump straight to the parts that arrived at the start of this week, and we'll go from there. So yeah, again, link in this description below if you want to know the deeper details about this project. Alright, so it's almost time to take my GPS assisted radiation survey meter for a drive. Just doing a couple of quick last minute edits. I made a typo in the code, so just fixing that in the field before I go. Alright, so I've just run a reboot. I've corrected my code. I had just one character was lowercase when it should have been capital. It's all it takes to stop a computer. One character out of place. This should switch mode in a moment and go to a larger font, and then we should be able to see it happen. Here we go, larger font for the terminal, and we should see it auto load the scripts. Now I've given it about 15 minutes to warm up the GPS, which is a lot quicker than it's been happening lately. So yeah, got somebody coming past looking at me very suspiciously up here. Yeah, I do look out of place here. So we'll wait about 15 seconds. That logging script should create a new table for the day. Nope. Now. Alright, so I've still got a global out of place. That was working last night. Alright, I'll have to fix that again. Alright, we've got another PC21 coming overhead. And it's time to reboot this. I hadn't declared my variable properly. So very shortly we should see this come back up. We're almost at action stage. It's been 3 months now building this project. We're almost there. It's so close. So close I'm getting my words slurred together. Yeah, I don't really drink, but geez, I sound like it today. Maybe it's the 2 days I've been awake, because somebody keeps testing my security system in the middle of the night. But that's a different video. Although by the time you see this, I will have probably posted that video. Alright. Alright, we're waiting for it to come up. I had to cancel a call for this, because that one person that calls me all the time has really inconvenient timing. Alright, come on, 15-second loop. Aha, GPS is okay, it's logging 8 satellites. Alright, we're good to go. Alright, so I've done a number of laps around the town of interest and some areas which I can't show you on screen. But suffice it to say, I haven't looked at the data yet. I don't expect anything too terribly surprising. So let's get this data pulled up on Google Earth and see if we can do that without revealing too many precious coordinates. Alright, so I've logged myself in through the console and started up the scripts, and of course because we're inside I can't find any GPS. However, I have today's radiation log, so let's get that downloaded. Alright, so clearly something is wrong. All my points are clustered around a 20 meter square area, and all the zeros indicate starting and ending points. But for the most part, all the readings seem to be fairly correct, but the location's really stuck in a small area. It's condensed, so maybe I'm logging incorrectly. This is a little frustrating. Okay, another bag marked S has come from China, but it's the batteries for the GPS module. So that should solve one of my two remaining problems with this project. So the first of which is that the GPS doesn't keep its memory, so any settings I write to it are forgotten, and it has to do a cold start every time, which takes forever. The other problem I've got is probably unrelated to this, is that all my GPS points are clustering in one tiny little spot. Even if I drive, several kilometers away, all the points are logged in the same area. Now, I'm not sure if that's a faulty GPS chip, or whether it's something in the settings, or the way I've written the string interpreter for it, or something in the string builder itself. I don't know, we'll figure that out. But for now, I've got to go see Tinkerman Mick. Okay, so about a week has passed since the last clip, and I've been beating my head against a brick wall. But thanks to a mate of mine by the name of Waze, we have finally got success. Everything works, and it mostly came down to this one line here of trying to put some strings together. Now, the reason my waypoints were all clustering in the one place is, and this is kind of funny, this is typical of computers, I'd asked it for the decimal degrees, so it gave me just the degrees in decimal form, not the minutes or the seconds. So I found PyNMir 2 has a DM to SD command here. That takes the Latin long and gives me actual decimal degrees from that. Then I had a problem trying to write that, trying to treat that value as a string, and it actually gave me a float value, which we can't treat like a string in here. So we also found in that the tutorial that I had used was actually I had reassigned the string command as a variable, so we couldn't make any calls to string, which meant we couldn't convert a float to a string. So I had to do a lot of cleaning up of the code, but between the two of us, we got to the bottom of it in the end, and it's now something like 1:30 in the morning, and I'm calling it quits. But tomorrow we're going to go for a walk and see if we have real values. The last time I got values, they were all clustered in the one spot, and that was a pain because I had real data that I'd actually got out and scanned thinking it would work. So I've still got access to where I want to scan, so we'll try again. Now the only other thing that has to happen is I have to replace those little batteries in the GPS unit so we can do warm starts. Everything else will be really useful once that happens. I'll be able to go out, switch it on, wait a few seconds and go and scan an area and then come back. Nowhere near the hours of preparation that I need to go through at the moment. And a lot better on batteries too. Alright, so I just did a quick little blocky now that I've finally got a GPS fix, and hopefully we've got some coordinates recorded in the right place now. I've just turned the counter off so the counts per minute will drop to 0. Now I did find the battery is indeed knackered on that. I left it all night. If that battery was going to charge up, it would have. I turned the thing off for maybe 10 seconds and then turned it back on, and it already had to do a hot start all over again. Sorry, a cold start. So I'll be definitely talking to Tinkerman Mick as soon as I can get hold of him again to change that battery over. Anyway, let's get these coordinates loaded up. Right, well I've just gone for a walk around the block, and not good news. All these 0 points are where I was standing in the front yard. all these readings should actually have been all the way down the street and back up again. And they look like random noise. It's just moved maybe a little bit. So this GPS module is not outputting coordinates that change. It's working on the initial fix. I can't find any information anywhere that describes what this anomaly is all about. This area here is about 20 square meters, so not quite there yet. I've just wasted a whole week trying to fix this problem, and I was on the wrong problem. It wasn't the translation to coordinates, it was something else. Okay, so another 2 days have passed, and again I've been losing sleep, particularly over this one problem. My clustering waypoints, however, good news, I'll turn my overhead light on. The good news is I found my problem. It's that Pi 2 string builder that I'm using. It's giving me incorrect coordinates, whereas if I use CGPS, I get perfect coordinates. Everything works, except I had to go in and write them down on paper after visually looking on the screen to find that out. But we're heading somewhere. I've actually got correct coordinates coming out of this thing. I now know it's not the GPS module, and it's not the interface problem. It's a programming problem, and that's about the right finger for that programming problem. So I've managed to frustrate a few people on the Raspberry Pi forums, but they've luckily been quite patient with me. And I'm dealing with the typical thing of when I post something on a programming forum, they're like, the first response is, why don't you just not do that? Or, hey, why don't you just not do anything you're doing and just do it this entirely different way? Just skip over that whole thing. Why do you want to do that? It's stupid. Default responses to nearly everything I post on those forums, and probably because I'm not using best practice. But, you know, if somebody's asking for help on a forum, just realize they're probably self-taught and not doing things with the best practice. So just explain to them how to do it, instead of criticizing somebody for asking for help. That's like saying, hey, that guy's fat. He's asking for help to get not fat, or to get skinny, or I don't know. That's a good analog anyway, that I think. And you criticize somebody for wanting to improve themselves. That's the same kind of logic I see going here. I'll have a separate rant video on this later. Anyway, I've made some headway. I'm happy. I've had a night of stressing about this. I think I've almost got it figured out. So I'm going to go back to the drawing board. Okay, it's been like another 2 days, but we finally have working GPS logging. This project's finally going to work. So all I've got to do now is change that pesky little GPS battery, which I've got hiding up here. We've just got to change one of these over so I can get a hot fix, instead of a cold start that takes like 2 hours every time. But my problem was the Pi string builder, whatever you call it. That was the problem. So between me and my awesome mate Waze, we finally got this problem figured out. And so basically what we're doing, we're just grabbing the serial string and splitting it up ourselves and doing the relevant maths. We could have written what we needed to anyway, but the problem with the points scaling down was because somebody who wrote that interpreter or string builder was sitting right on the equator. Didn't realize that the further away you get from the equator, the shorter the distances become, because the longitudinal lines converge. And we are quite a significant way from the equator here, enough for it to be about 60% smaller. So yeah, so we did our own maths and we did it properly, and it works. It bloody well works. So I haven't wasted 3 months of my life and hours of your time. It's going to work. So we've already done a quick practical little test, but I'm going to do another one under some controlled conditions. One where you guys can actually see some coordinates and some points so that you're not bored by code. But tonight's a night for celebration. 3 months of hard work is actually going to work. So yeah, I'm going to go find something sweet and something decadent, and I'm going to curl up in a ball and take the rest of the night off. Okay, with the fundamentals solved, I'm back to doing a couple of minor refinements. I thought I'd make some guard bars to fit in the edge here, so that I can carry it round and also not interfere with the switches. But to the casual observer, Notice these aren't strictly the same size. I kind of eyeballed the first one and didn't quite get it right, but they'll fit in there well enough with a bit of glue, and that will mean I can then sit it upside down or whatnot without worrying about busting switches off or the monitor, and I can carry it like that. And also I can attach the strap or carry handle and spread the load, because I intend to hang this from a distance close to the ground, so I get the best chance of picking up accumulated material. But I think these are going to get held in with hot glue. So considering there's a threaded insert at the bottom of these, I'm not going to be interfering with the screws. So yeah, let's go and get some hot glue in there. So this is pretty much what it looks like. The glue's set, although I need to go around with a knife, clean it up, and well, that's not a knife. Now that's a knife, but unfortunately not real good for that job. So anyway, so once we've cleaned all this up, let's have a look at a couple of the other advantages that these straps now afford us. We can now sit this upside down comfortably, so we can take an item such as something like this, wave it over here to check to spot check a particular item. We can mount it sideways should we wish to, or normally like that, in which we can pop the monitor up. Crucially, the switches are far less likely to get bumped and broken, makes transporting it a lot easier, good bit of grip on it. And it means if I can find some seatbelt webbing or just some thin strapping, I can make a handle of some kind that I can carry it close to my feet or close to the ground without having to bend over or hunch over. So yeah, let's get this cleaned up. Alright, we've got GPS. We're running on battery, which is down to about 10 volts. So I'm going to fold the lid down and go for a walk, and we'll see what we get. Alright, so the saga's not over yet. Now, the script we were using to test at 1 second intervals was quite good. It recorded really fine. The moment I switched to 15-second intervals, it stopped. Because I can tell you now, I crossed the road and come back here. And there's a huge cluster of points, so that 15-second delay is part of what's causing all that clustering problem. But for now, I'm just going to leave it at 1 second intervals, and I can deal with the math later. At least my coordinates are accurate. We can go out and find out what we really want. Then I can work on the project. I can take my time. But yeah, that's what we're going to have to do now. Alright, so I'm just getting geared up to go and see Tinkerman Mick. And we've got our spare GPS module here that doesn't work. That's practice. So a bunch of spare batteries, GPS unit, and I think there's an antenna here I needed him to have a look at too. So yeah, go over and get this battery changed. We might almost be ready for business. Anyway, let's jump to Tinkerman Mick's place. I've got a bit of a drive. Alright, so it's school holidays today and the apprentices are all in-house at the moment. But we've got Tinkerman Mick here. He's having to go at the test run first. We're just trying to adapt these batteries. The ones I've ordered are slightly different size, so we're having to have a bit of a think about exactly how we're going to retrofit a different style of battery on there. But it's the same chemistry, should be fine. And we've got our test one over in the UV bed there. We pulled up a track getting it off, so we're just gluing that back down with some UV set glue. And once we've got this one right, we'll open up our Geiger counter here and we'll swap the battery over on the module that's in there, which means I've got to pull some hot glue out. And that's where I start to regret using hot glue, but also I can still remove it anyway if I need to. And at some point we might even have another look at if there's anything wrong with this antenna here. We might be able to revive the old second GPS module. But yeah, so we're getting there. It's taken a few people in this project to get this going, but we're almost there. Alright, we've got some phoneception happening here, but we've elected, the battery style is so different that I think we're going to mount the battery off-board. This is part of the reasoning why we've got a couple of boards to play with first, is to figure out what's best. And you know, sometimes you break stuff experimenting, and that's exactly what we're doing. So yeah, if we get this working with an off-board battery, I think that's what we'll do with them, the actual useful module that's not buggered. And on goes the battery. See if we can get a different angle here. That's better, we can see both angles going at once here. I'm shoving my camera right under his nose, but it's all good.
I'm trying to get a better angle on the negative terminal, because it's not touching down yet.
Yeah. That's right. But this is sort of another chapter in the day of my life where trying to do stuff that probably wasn't meant to be done, so there's always challenges involved in that.
That Trace hates that idea.
That's alright. Well, once a trace is buggered, it's usually not going to behave, but nothing wrong with that.
Some pressure.
Right, so we've had a muck around with the practice board, and we're pretty sure we're going to mount the battery off board. So we're going to open this up here and just mount the Geiger counter module down here. So our GPS unit here is stuck down on hot glue. We'll have to peel that out in a minute. And our little battery we want to do is right there. So we've got room here, we can mount that off board and we can stick it down here somewhere, probably under some hot glue or heat shrink or something like that. So yeah, our next job, we've got to get this this board out.
So double checking, we've got little wires. Going to remove that battery with a reflow gun. Then attach these wires to our new batteries. And then mount that battery off the board instead with the wires.
Cool. Alright, we're just pre-tinning the pads on the battery here. I can probably see through the phoneception setup here. But yeah, we're pre-tinning the pads, getting ready to use a reflow gun to pull this battery off. And then we're going to mount the battery off the board based on our experiments with the other board. And the layout on this one is slightly different. So yeah, I think we're just going to err on the side of caution. Or at least that's what I've suggested Tinkerman Mick do. So
We'll be very cautious on this one, I think.
yeah, he's sort of caving to my my requests here. So this is the board that works.
We're going to keep it working, Dave.
Well, the other board works, but it just never gets a fix. So the question has just been posed that whether or not this battery is going to explode. And actually, it might do, because I started to get some warm starts out of this just recently after leaving it run for 2 days, but I think that battery is definitely shagged. So yeah, take your bet now. Will the battery explode? Well, let's just come off without exploding. That was nice. Reflow gun was definitely a good idea. Let's just have a good look at this board ourselves here. We'll come in for a zoom here in front of Mick's camera. We'll do our phoneception thing. I think we'll get the microscope onto it in a minute. That's all good. We're doing a double magnification here. I'm going to zoom in here a bit. There's our pad there with the battery removed. So yeah, that looks good. This one corner pad here was what lifted up on the other one. That's not much of a pad, so yeah, I think I'm happier about that idea. Now, whenever I'm looking at somebody else's soldering, I'm always interested to critique it, but I realise we're looking at a very large zoomed view. But we have our wires attached here, and so I really can't complain about the work. It's actually quite good when you look at it from real-time size. Yeah, so we've got our wires on. We've marked a couple with, or Mick did, marked a couple with negative. So we know we're not going to get the battery backwards. It's crucial importance. You don't want to put batteries on backwards, especially with something you've only got one of. Just for the haters of hot glue, Tinkerman Mick uses it too.
I love it.
I'm not the only one, so stop yelling at me about it. Right, using one of many methods to strip the insulation off enamelled wire. I've got different methods that I use, but you know, each one's appropriate to a different situation. Yeah, so the MS dexterity's kind of got to me. I'm having a bit of trouble, so Tinkerman Mick's going to take over and do the antenna socket for me. And he's had experience with the MS 485 connectors like this a lot. And he just did that in like a couple of seconds flat, and I've been at it for like 10 minutes. So yeah, we're doing well. We'll stick this battery down and we'll let it get it charged up for a bit and see if we can get a hot start. But that probably means 2 hours of waiting, so this might go home to a DC supply. But yeah, we're nearly there. Alright, it's officially smoke test time. We're going to turn the power on, turn our monitor on, and hear the little explosion of a tiny battery. It's probably kind of loud, it's in a hot heat shrink. So it hasn't immediately destroyed itself. We'll give this some time to warm up, and then we'll check if we get a GPS fix. Okay, so we were nearly done, and then we had to pull everything out and chop it off again because this stopped providing serial data out. And we found that this battery, for some reason, is stopping that GPS from working. I think in the charge process it's trying really hard and consuming the entire current rating of the charge circuit, presumably because that's a higher capacity battery. So we're going to try a little baby supercapacitor and see what that does. Otherwise, worst case, we can put the dead battery back on it or just run it without one, but we'll see how we go with this first. Alright, we've got a little supercapacitor on here. Mick is greatly relieved that he hasn't killed the board. And if we turn this on, this light was always quite dim, but it's working now. So we'll leave the supercapacitor on there. This was an experiment I was going to try further down the track, but I feel bad about having waited a month for batteries for this. But anyway, this might work. If it keeps the data in there for a day or a few hours, that's all we need. Just so I can warm it up, turn everything off, go to site, do a scan, and come back again. Anyway, let's see if we're getting serial data out. So yeah, the day's getting late for me anyway. It's not that late really, but as far as multiple sclerosis is concerned, it's done for the day, so I can't put this little MS485 connector back on. So yet again, I'm going to sting Mick with a job. We're going to put it back together. Then we're going to fire this up and see if we get serial data out of it.
Give me all the fun jobs.
This is all good. Yeah, no, it's getting to the point where I just can't do the fiddly stuff anymore. But I'm going to keep going until I'm dead. Alright, super caps in. Let's just smoke test one more time. We don't have a light. Oh, we do have a light. It's hidden down there. It's just dim. But that was always dim. Alright, let's flip this over, put it on mains, and see if we get some serial output now. Okay, so after fitting the supercapacitor and leaving the screws undone so we don't jinx ourselves, this is booted up nicely. We're not getting any cords yet, but we are getting serial data from the unit. So crucially, we know we didn't kill the unit, but those batteries are not suitable for the unit. So I hope SuperCap might at least give me some hours or some days. I guess we'll find out. But anyway, we're going to see if it gets a fix. If it doesn't, in the next few minutes, I'm going to go home and we'll try this later today. Alright, so we're back from Tinkerman Mix. The supercapacitor is working, although it's actually the next morning, by the way, I should add. The supercapacitor doesn't work overnight, it drains away, but that's alright. It means I can warm this up in the morning and go out to where I need to survey, turn it on and get a nice quick fix instead of having to have it powered all the way there. Much more convenient. Now, I also worked till like 3 in the morning with my awesome mate Waze, and there's an emergency. That's what that beep 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 is. That's the emergency app. Worked with my awesome mate Waze till about 3 in the morning, and we actually got it working. We solved all the buffer overflow issues and everything like that. Now, I went for a walk here actually down this street. Now, one of the things I had to do was record the number of satellites it's connected to when it records each point. These were 6 satellites, and then it dropped back to 4 when I got under some trees, and so all these are a little bit inaccurate. However, they are all more or less in the correct place. Excuse the yawn. Late nights. Sounds like I've got visitors too. Alright, but yeah, all these clustered points, that's where I was wandering around at like 1 o'clock this morning, and the coppers pulled me up and said, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Hey, I'm looking for cosmic radiation." They looked at me like I was insane.